And there's been some controversy over this because apparently this Bishop Grolje has shown liberal tendencies in some things that he's written in the past. For instance, sort of, back in 2015, he was wanting to bless same-sex couples. And I think he even wants female deacons or possibly priests. I'm not sure. So there was concern as to why Pope Leo would.
Typical Swiss, really.
Sorry?
Typical Swiss, really.
So there was a lot of concern as to why Pope Leo XIV would, appoint him. Well, what's interesting, I never even knew this, but there is actually a 150-year-old concordat between the Vatican and St. Gallen that actually allows the local diocese through its cathedral to choose their bishop. So they get to choose like 6 candidates, and then they send the list of 6 candidates to Rome, and the Pope can review the candidates and he can get rid of 3 that he deems the worst. They send them back, and then the local diocese votes and they choose the bishop. And then once they choose the bishop, it goes back to Rome simply to rubber stamp it. And so in this, this is based on a concordat. So it's an actual treaty that he's bound to follow. So I think we need to go a little easy on Pope Leo XIV here because he didn't technically choose this bishop. They did. And according to the treaty, he just sort of rubber stamps it. Now, other people said, oh, well, that's no excuse. He could have just said, no, he's the Pope. He's the supreme legislator. He can do whatever he wants. He can just say no. True. But then that would be breaking the concordat, which would then start a little war, between the Vatican and this diocese, which could lead to schism and all sorts of other, fallout. And so it's not like as easy as a stroke of a pen. It's a very actually complicated thing. So I don't think that we should be freaking out over this appointment of this liberal bishop in Switzerland.
Yeah, it's a great point. And the other thing I think that we have to remember as someone who's run a business is I'm looking at the amount of work this guy's got to do, Christine. He's got so much on his desk, hasn't he? And I'm like, just the appointments that he has and the fact that he's got these beautifully crafted speeches. Now, I don't know whether he must have a speechwriter, I suppose, but there's a massive change in tone. As you said, the first homily, I said exactly the same thing as you just said. That could be Benedict. I think I sent it to my parish priest and said, this could be Benedict.
He wrote that himself.
He did, thank God. But the tone of of everything he said, it's a different tone. You can recognize a different tone, can't you? So with all that to do, is it realistic that we think that he's actually choosing the bishops? I mean, surely that's what the dicastery for bishops that he used to head is for. So we've got to be realistic about the amount of work that one man can do in a day as well, haven't we? Surely.
Yes, absolutely. That's what people don't realize is there are something like 5,400 bishops in the world, most of whom he does not know at all, which is the case for every pontiff prior to him. Popes don't know the vast majority of the bishops that exist in the world. So they rely heavily on the papal nuncio of that country. They rely heavily on the dicastery for bishops. And so if they're being given bad advice, which we know Pope John Paul II was being given very bad advice because he appointed Cardinal McCarrick to a number of high-ranking positions without knowing. Pope Benedict appointed Cardinal Wuerl to Washington, D.C. Wuerl's one of the worst, one of the most corrupt as far as I'm concerned. But Pope Benedict didn't know. This happens all the time, unfortunately. Bad bishops get through because pontiffs have to rely, like you mentioned, on their advisors. And you have to pray and hope that the advisors are giving you good advice, but sometimes they don't. So we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the pontiff. This man is incredibly busy. He's overseeing a church of 1.4 billion Catholics, thousands of bishops, hundreds of thousands of clergy. And so we need to kind of cut him a little slack sometimes.